My name is Anu. I will be your host for today's session. Welcome to Pukar Helplines Wellness Dialogue Sessions. And today our session is on demystifying disabilities from myths to facts, stereotypes to realities. I just love this title already. Every month through this platform, we bring you topics that are related to mental health and not just for, listening and for the theory of it, but to really see how we can incorporate that in our lives and use it for ourselves, for our loved ones, to help people around us, right? We've brought topics such as empathy, listening, grief, suicide, emotional support, managing expectation, a lot of these topics which we have brought through this forum on a monthly basis. But before we jump into the session, I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about Pukar Helpline. It is a fully volunteer-driven emotional support helpline. It provides free, confidential, non-judgmental support to anyone feeling stressed, depressed, or suicidal. We have thoroughly trained volunteers who listen to you and try to understand what you're feeling without any judgment. And I'm sure we can all agree that's a pretty valuable service in today's times. Pukar operates every day from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. We will put the details in the chat. Feel free to share it with anyone you think might benefit from such a service. Before I introduce Shalu, who's our speaker for the day, some housekeeping rules and a brief introduction to the topic. We will be recording the session. We would like it to be interactive. Maybe put your questions in the chat. And Shalu also has some activity for us for which it would be great if we have a pen and paper handy. And interaction is always better when we have faces in front of us. So please put on your videos. It would be so nice for the speaker as well to see faces rather than just names and profile photos and random alphabets in the black box. We will be sharing a very short feedback form towards the end so that we can understand what kind of sessions you would like and how this session works for you. So please do take the time to fill that out as well. It's extremely short, it won't take much time. So on to the topic, demystifying disability. I already see Shalu smiling, so I can tell how passionate you are about this. It's an invitation, really, I think, in my mind at least, to look beyond misconceptions. We often misunderstand what it means, leading to stereotypes. And more importantly, it leads to a distance rather than a connect. So I think just deepening our understanding, we may be able to build more empathy and offer more meaningful support for persons with disabilities. So I'm so glad that we have Shalu here to speak with us. Shalu Sharma, there's a whole lot in her profile and all the work that she's done. I have tried to keep it short, Shalu. I hope you don't mind. Um, Shalu is a special educator, life skills trainer, and expressive arts therapist with over 25 years experience working with neurodiverse individuals. She is the founder of Evolve Your Solutions, a consultancy that promotes inclusion in mainstream workplaces by training, mentoring, and placing adults with autism, intellectual disabilities, and learning differences through her pioneering shift. And I found this very interesting because this is something that we have also come across when I was training for counseling. Um, a shift from calling it vocational training to internships in open workplaces is what I think Shalu has created quite an impact by doing this. She has influenced mindsets and created sustainable career pathways for persons with special needs. She also leads ECOS, Evolio's Contemporary Office Services, an inclusive working space where 100% of employees are neurodiverse. That is, I mean, I think we have to take a moment and really hand it to you, Shalu. This sounds wonderful. With advanced degrees in fine arts, applied psychology, and special education, and multiple international certifications, she serves on advisory boards and task forces and has represented India at global forums on inclusion. So we are just so privileged to have you here. Thank you so much for taking this talk for us. Over to you, Shalu.
Thank you so much for having me here. And also, thank you for showing up. It's like almost afternoon has not ended, and on a weekend, this is the time for siesta. But thank you all for being here. Um, Today's topic, of course, is very dear to me, but I would like to not go into any technicalities or any jargons or heavy vocabulary because I do want to talk about uh, it in a very matter of fact way. Because we need to, I feel this is the time for all of us to start regarding disability or neurodiversity or special needs or people with challenges, no matter what you call it, um, in um, in a very matter of fact, let's talk about it openly kind of a situation, because the more we try and keep it into a very niche, or this is a very specialized field and only people who know about it should talk about it, etc., then we are limiting our own knowledge, and we are limiting it for somebody with a diagnosis. So I'll try not to throw any complicated jargon your way, but try and keep it very simple and matter of fact. I will of course take everybody through a quick presentation, um, but I'll try not to dwell too much on it. Yes, I know Anu said that you can put your questions in the chat, but even in between, if you want me to stop and explain something or talk in more detail about something, please just stop me in between and we'll do the needful. Also, I hope that some of you, if not all, do have a paper pen with you, because we would like to do a quick activity. It's of course much more fun when it's a face to face workshop or a talk, but yes, I never underestimate the power of being online and the outreach that it can create. So somewhere in between we are going to do some quick activities. So just give me a thumbs up, who all have a paper and pencil, so I know. Okay, that's good. Two, three of you, that's fine. We'll go ahead with that. Okay, so I am going to start sharing my screen. Can everybody see my screen? Anu, just give me a thumbs up. Okay.
Yes, it's not on presentation mode yet, but I can see it. Yes, perfect. Thank
Okay, super. So just quickly going over some stats for all of you. This is what I've pulled off the net, so I believe it should be partly true. And if you look at the numbers, 80% of the population of people with disability is in the developing countries. Now, it would, some people will think, oh, maybe we don't have data, but if we had data, it will be worse. Yes. So, and almost 3 crores is uh, people who live with some form of disability. And here I'm assuming that we do not have the complete data. If you look at the definitions of disability are, um, it has nothing to do with any limitations. It just says, I like the words in the second definition that says it is a condition that impairs, interferes with, or limits a person's ability to engage in certain tasks. If you look at the definition that is on the screen, the definition itself says that it does not like stop you or ostracize you or exclude you from doing stuff with the society. It is something that can interfere with, or maximum something that is going to limit your interaction. Here, I also want to, since so many of you are involved in an organization that specifically targets mental illness, there is a difference between mental illness and mental disability. So, mental illness is a condition that can be to some extent be managed through medication, right? And it comes and goes. It's not all pervasive 24/7 all the time. Whereas mental disability is something that is there all the time. So some examples of mental illness, I'm sure most of you are already aware of these terms: anxiety, depression. You are bipolar. Anxiety and depression are so common these days, but this can be managed with um, medication. Also, there are days or there are times in the day where you are fine. You don't have anxiety 24/7. When you're sleeping, you don't have anxiety or depression. You're sleeping. Your anxiety is not manifesting itself. Having said that, supposing you have a mental disability diagnosis like, say, Down syndrome, you have it all the time. It's not like in the morning I have more Down syndrome and then I take a medication and by night I'm okay. So these are the two very distinct areas that we need to be mindful of. Having a mental disability is not the same as having a mental illness or vice versa. So, whatever, why I'm putting it out there on the onset is that we should not use these words lightly, right? In neither of the condition, neither with mental illness nor with mental disability. So, be very clear. Now, as an organization, Evoluer is more equipped to handle young people with a mental disability or a neurodiverse diagnosis, not so much somebody purely with psychosis or somebody purely with schizophrenia, etc. Having said that, a lot of neurodiverse conditions do manifest themselves with some symptoms of mental illness either. A lot of people with autism will have certain obsessive compulsive traits. People with Down syndrome, especially women when they hit menopause, do go through depression. So these are all overlapping. So the treatment and how you target these conditions is very different for somebody who is a psychiatrist and somebody who's a special educator. Just wanted to put it out there. Now, there are many, many ways to categorize or classify uh, disability. Now, I'm using the word disability because it's a term that most people understand easily. And we will then, towards the later stages of the presentation, talk about why the terminology is changing now. So, disability, the way it presents itself, it could be physical, where we are looking at wheelchair users, people who are blind, people who are deaf, etc. It can present itself in an intellectual aspect of it, where it affects your ability to understand things or learn things or retain things. It can be sensory, where besides hearing or seeing, it's the way you perceive sounds or smells or sights or touch that can affect you. And then it is neurological, where you can lose some bodily functions. We need to also be mindful that not all of these are something that you're born with. Things like ALS and multiple sclerosis, etc., is a neurological condition, and it does affect in somebody losing some of the mental or the bodily function. So it's not just somebody is born with a neurological disorder, you can develop it in your lifetime as well. Largely speaking, it will, some of the things that very clearly it impacts is your hearing, vision, movement, mental health, of course. How do you remember? How do you communicate? How do you calculate? And how do you get along with your immediate society? Please let me know if I'm moving too fast. We have lots of ground to cover. Physical disability, of course, you know that it manifests itself in something visible, right? And intellectual disability is something that at times is not visible all the time. We call it the invisible disability. I love this picture. These are all a team of young people. They all work at Lemon Tree. Lemon Tree is one of our partners and is doing some phenomenal work in hiring, retaining, and looking after the career growth of young people with disabilities or young people with a diagnosis. When you look at the larger circle of what intellectual disability is, and I am putting pictures that I pulled off the net because this is what the internet will throw up at you when you open it. So let us talk about what is going to be there for you to view after this workshop is also over, so that you know the terminology that you're reading. So, intellectual disability or developmental disability manifests itself in many, many different conditions, but these are ones that are most common. I'm some of the students that you see on the screen are young people with Down syndrome. This is something very common, and you can make out a person who has Down syndrome because it does manifest itself in changes in the physical features. You have Fragile X syndrome, which is quite similar to what autism looks like. You have cerebral palsy, which is something that you're born with, and it affects the way your body and your mind coordinates and works seamlessly together. You have autism spectrum disorder, or autism, or ASD as it is called, which we are going to talk about in length. You have something called the fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. It is not very prevalent, but if you Google ID or developmental disability, this also will show up. It is a condition that affects in the lowering of your IQ and the way your mental functions manifest itself because of a very typical behavior that pregnant mothers exhibit. There is epilepsy, which is seizures and fits. You can be born with it, you can develop it later. And then there is the very clear term of intellectual disability. It is also a large term where your IQ is much lesser, and it affects your learning, your functioning, your social skills. Sometimes it also affects the way you coordinate the various movements of your body. Any questions here at this point of time? Um, let's talk a little bit in detail about autism spectrum disorder. And the reason why we're doing it now, because it is quite prevalent now, and with more knowledge and more information available for everybody, everybody is reading about autism, and sometimes little knowledge is not the best thing. So let us talk about autism, what it is and what it is not. If you're looking at autism spectrum disorder, or ASD, or just autism, the areas that are mentioned around the circle are the areas which are affected when somebody is diagnosed with autism. A lot of times autism does manifest itself as birth at birth itself, but technically you cannot formally diagnose somebody with autism till that person is 3 years old, right? But there are ways to catch it early. Now it usually affects your autism is something which, a word that you will also hear is, it affects your sensory needs, it affects your sensory perception. So we are talking about we all say we have five senses, we are all very aware of it. So it does affect the way we perceive and see sights, the way we see and perceive sounds, the way we see, perceive, and interpret smells, any touch, our spatial knowledge. When I say vestibular, it means our um, the way we perceive our joints and how we function our joints. And when we are looking at proprioception, it means our balance. So vestibular is balance, and proprioception is the way we manage our joints. So you can hit harder, you can flail too much, all this happens. Now when somebody has autism, it affects you in many different ways, but the main areas that get affected are, of course, your sensory processing, which I've just mentioned, how we process senses. Um, I'll give you an example. Like, we are all engaged in this um, workshop together, right? And I will stop, and so that I can, well, see myself because I can't see anybody else. So, when we say that somebody's senses or somebody's sensory system is not working properly, and I'll give you an example. We are all having a workshop here, and there are a lot of noises where I am, but most of you have tuned it out. I have tuned it out myself, right? There is somebody who's in the next room doing something, and I can hear some noises. There's an air condition on, there's a little hum if I really focus. There's a road outside, and sometimes a car passes by, but my focus is here. I can hear it, but I have tuned it out. If somebody makes that noise right in front of me and I can't tune it out, it will affect my ability to communicate with any of you or listen, or it'll be so much that I'll get so disturbed. There are noises and sounds and touches which really bother all of us. like nail scratching. Some people get very bothered with the with utensils clanking. Some voices are very irritating to hear, right? Some people do get startled with the whistle of the cooker in the kitchen and all, right? Then there are some textures that bother us. There's some things that I know a lot of people who can't eat custard apple. They say it's slimy, it's terrible, I can't have it. So there are certain textures that also bother us, right? So it's not like, oh, nobody's diagnosed us with autism, but in the sensory profile of human beings, there are all kinds of things happening, right? I have some people who hate tube lights, and there are others who won't be able to read unless a tube light is on. Somebody like yellow lights, I like soft lights, I like mornings, I hate the sunshine, I love the sunshine. None of us labels us as having autism, but everybody's senses are tuned and wired differently to our environment. It's just that people with autism, it's a bit extreme. It could be hypo, that means they seek out more sensory stimulus, or it could be hyper, means they already have too much of it and they don't want it, right? So it does affect your system. And I truly believe if any of you ever go on to educate somebody with autism, you need to fix that first before you can move on to teaching anybody. And one example that I love to give is like having a pebble in your shoe. How it bothers you, or having something stuck in your teeth. It is such an overwhelming situation for something so small, but it bothers us to such an extent that till we fix that, we cannot move on. So when somebody has a young child, or not so young child has autism, you need to fix that first before you can move on to teaching him the ABC 1 2 3 and the ways of the world, right? Because it does affect um, it does affect your basic sense of safety. Then when somebody has autism, it does affect your um, you keep repeating behaviors because there is safety in doing repetitive behavior. And all of us do repetitive behavior. For all the nail biters and people who doodle or shake the pen or shake their legs, these are all repetitive behaviors. It affects your verbal and non-verbal communication, because you really cannot understand what the other person is saying. You cannot, unless you're trained to, you can't understand the other person's point of view. It's like if you send me to like a place or a space that is culturally very different from us, and I have to do certain behaviors, or people are saying something that I can't understand, then my so-called perfect communication is going to get affected, because I don't know which place the other person is coming from. So for people with autism, uh, I don't like using the word empathy, but we'll use it for the sake of this workshop. So they say they lack empathy, or they do not understand the other person's point of view. I think it's just a matter of training them correctly. They do have empathy, but then empathy means different things to different people. I don't break out into tears the minute I see somebody walking on the road in the heat. But that doesn't mean I do not have empathy. So levels of empathy also differ. There's sometimes their motor skills, their balance, etc., do get effective. And when we are looking at executive function, means your organizing, your planning, your goal setting, your creative thinking, flexible thinking, all these things get affected, because the way you're interpreting the world is very different from um, what a so-called neurotypical person interprets. Types of disability also can be classified by the level of impairment, whether it is impairing you, whether it is limiting you, or whether it is restricting you. These are three very different things, right? Dimension means the level, the seriousness of your disability. Impairing means that if you, just a minute, sorry, give me a minute, I need to turn off my phone. Done that. So can everybody still see my screen?
Not anymore,
Okay,
but we
give me,
were able to see it just a
okay,
second ago.
give me a minute. So, as Anu very nicely said in the beginning of the workshop, 25 years of experience, you all know how old I am. So, I'm not very tech savvy. Okay. Now you can see the screen.
Yes.
Okay. So,
Perfect.
impairment means it's very, um, it very clearly impairs one bodily function, right? Limitation means it will limit the way you function, and participation means in the day to day acting like you are okay by yourself, and when you to participate, then it limits you. For a lot of people with autism, there's no impairment, there's no activity limitation, but it hugely affects your participation restriction. For somebody who's lost a limb, there is impairment, there is activity limitation, but you have friends, you hang around, you party, you chit chat, and you have a great social going. So mostly if somebody who has an intellectual disability, it's only then that all these three areas get affected. By prognosis means what has caused it, when have you got it, right? So there are these are different ways that disabilities can be interpreted or classified. So some conditions you get which are present at birth, or they may start come like multiple sclerosis comes later, Down syndrome you're born with it, cerebral palsy you are mostly born with it, seizures can start anytime in life, etc. Some are they are you're born with it, but as you grow they manifest itself more, like a little baby who's running around screaming yay cart rolls baby, doesn't matter, no ADHD, but if you're still doing that when you're 12 years old, it has begin to show up later in your personhood. It could be related to an injury. If you have a traumatic brain injury, you have your loss of your mental functions, etc. It could be something that you have acquired which has resulted in it, like there are people with diabetes who do get injury and they lose a limb because it just doesn't heal. And there are certain things that are static or intermittent, they show up time and time again. And this just doesn't mean like a mental disability. There are people who have, let's say, um, arthritis, it shows up more in winters. Yeah. So it does get progressive and it does show up from time to time. The areas that get affected are, of course, learning, remembering, applying your knowledge, managing task and demand, personal tasks and demands of the society or the job or your immediate community, mobility. Of course, it affects your mobility, your self care tasks. If you have limited mobility, limited understanding of day to day functions, then your self care task, your domestic life, how do you manage your family, how much your family has to manage you, all these things get affected. And subsequently, your major life goals, like are you working, are you going do you have a friend circle in college, are you able to clear exams in schools, are you able to shop, are you able to save, all these things get affected. And then your personal relationships get affected, because if you don't uh, if you can't understand how to get along with people, and B, if you're not fitting into the mold of what the society expects you to, then you don't have a social circle. Subsequently, your self esteem and your image of self also deteriorates, which may not have anything to do with your diagnosis to begin with. Here are some terms that would be helpful to remember. Yeah, and this is a slide that is my favorite. What is the meaning of a disability? A disability is a condition caused by accident, trauma, genetics, or disease. It could be any of this. Somebody who's broken a leg is on a wheelchair, also has a disability, right? Um, so it can be caused by an accident like a traumatic brain injury, or you've just broken your foot. It could be a trauma to your head, trauma to it, even a mental trauma can be very restricting, or it could be a disease, or it could be genetics. We only focus on the genetics of it. The only way we look at disability is, oh, you have this diagnosis of autism or intellectual disability, this is your IQ and all that. But there are so many other things which contribute to the term disability. A handicap is something that is, it could be a physical attribute or it could be attitudinal. And we use this in golf. For those of you who play golf, we use the word handicap. It's used very positively and it's a very cool thing to say on the golf field, but it just becomes something so derogatory when used in the term of disability. Okay. If somebody has a disability, it may not be a handicap for them, right? Like I have specs. It's not a handicap for me when I'm working, right? If the job is sitting down, your need for a wheelchair is not a handicap. So handicap can be physical or it can be attitudinal. I think most handicaps are attitudinal. um, Impairment is when a significant loss, like we say visually impaired, because there's a loss of a one full chunk of your sensory. We say hearing impaired, yeah. So but impairment means when in the body structure or function there is a significant loss or impairment or difference, right? And restriction can be in both. It could be in activity or it could be in participation. So I hope these words are clear.
Shall I have a question?
Yes,
What do
please.
you mean by attitudinal handicap? I don't know
Atti-
why, but I feel like a lot of us might have that.
Attitudinal handicap is assuming something about someone from what you see on at face value. So if somebody
Mm.
is a wheelchair, and I'll give you an example. One of our supervisors is this young girl with cerebral palsy. Yeah, and there are many times that she participates with me to speak at forums like this. And for somebody to assume that just because she has cerebral palsy, she doesn't have a rocking social life is a attitudinal handicap, right?
Okay.
So not calling her to a drinking club is a handicap, is an attitudinal handicap that will get in her way of being able to participate. So attitudinal handicap is when you assume something. Usually it is from the other person, not from
Yeah,
not from me,
yeah,
right? And everything, ageism, sexism, all these are attitudinal handicaps,
correct.
right? So attitudinal handicap is when somebody assumes something or when there's a judgment on something or when somebody with a diagnosis or a disability or a condition is not able to participate because others have told that person that you can't do it. That is also
Mm.
an attitudinal handicap.
Beautiful.
Yes, is
Thanks
that
for
what you were asking, Anu?
yes, 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 yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Usually, this is the symbol for handicap world over, and I appreciate it. It is a much used, much recognized symbol. So it's great that we are seeing it. But what we see is this, and this is what it is. Yeah, it is all kinds of disabilities. And then it is somebody who can look like just like you and me. And you would never know. These are called the invisible disabilities. Okay, so for those of you who have a pen and paper, it'll be good if you pull it out now. And if at least a couple of you switch on your cameras, it'll be good. It'll make me feel really good. Thank you, Varshanjali. That's a pretty name. Thank you, Lakshmi. Thank you, Ritesh. And thank you, Ramya. Okay, everybody has a pen and paper. Thank you, Shrifani. Shrifani or Shrifani. What a lovely name. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, um, everybody, for those of you who it's just, and I'll explain to you. This is something very simple, but I'll explain to you. Hold, if you write with your right hand, hold the pen in your left hand. If you write with your right hand, hold the pen in your left hand. And if you write with your left hand, hold the pen in your right hand. So you're holding the pen in your non-dominant hand. Okay? In your non-dominant hand, keep the pen ready and just write this with your non-dominant hand. And after this, all of you are going to show what you've done on screen, and we are all going to horribly judge all of you. No, I'm just kidding.
Can you please show the screen again? What we need to write?
I'll need the sentence
Oh,
again.
sure, sure. Sorry. Oh, I thought you'll memorize it. You should have memorized it. Like a teacher, I'll quickly show it and then put it away and expect all students to just memorize it. It is not easy to do things when we are not fully in control. And that's it. You have to remember it and write with your non dominant hand and get ready to be judged. Okay, that's it. Put your pen down. Time up. Exam over. Who's going to show? It's voluntary. Anybody can show. And you'll have to turn off the
Okay, give me a second.
yes, please. Anu, let's go with Anu. Let's just put her in the spotlight.
Sure. There we
So
go.
bad, Anu. Is this the way you write? And you haven't even finished writing what you were supposed to. What do I do? Do I mark you on it and send a note home to your parents? I think we should do that. So bad. And I'm so sorry, Anu. Okay, anybody?
That's perfectly fine.
So bad. Yeah. This is what typically happens in a classroom if somebody has a condition like dysgraphia or dyslexia, they can't read as fast and then they can't write because they just can't write. Their mind. Thank you so much, Kamala. Thank you. How was it? Who wants to share what did it feel like? Wants to share what did it feel like?
I felt very stressed that I was going to be judged.
Yeah, very stressed. Did you try really hard though?
I did, and my Y's were going all over the
All
place.
over. But was everybody trying? Thank you, Anja. Anuja. Was everybody trying? Anybody else?
Yes, I was trying and it was little frustrating and I felt very restricted
Yeah,
that
yeah.
I'm not able to.
You felt restricted. I mean, you're trying so hard, but you can't coordinate your mind and your hand. And this is typically what happens if somebody has a learning disability, somebody has dysgraphia, somebody who has cerebral palsy, because you cannot just f- get it functioning. You know what you want to write, but your hand is not listening. You can't direct it. And it is so frustrating in schools because some gentleman said, could you put it back on the screen again? Because you're reading and you're stressed and it's gone and you haven't memorized it. You were supposed to. And then you know that, oh, I have to show it, and everybody else would have written beautifully except me. Now, here, of course, nobody would, right? But imagine if everybody else was writing with their correct hand and you were writing with your non dominant hand. So, just an idea, because it's very difficult to understand exactly what a person with a diagnosis feels like or goes through it day after day, class after class, rest of their lives. And they hear it from home, they hear it from school, they hear it from the community, then from grandparents and uncles and aunts, especially if you have a hidden disability like learning disability or autism. Because if you have somebody with a broken leg, yeah, it's there, I can see it. I also truly feel that even with we give so much of attention to mental disability, we don't give that much attention to mental illness. So, supposing I had a broken leg, or supposing Dolly, you had a broken leg, and you clearly had a plaster and you had a crutch, and I kept telling you, get up and walk, yeah, what's the big deal? टांग ही तो टूटी है, तो क्या हो गया, उठो यार, it's no big deal, दवाई तो खाली है ना, क्या है, why can't you walk? It's like that when people just dismiss things like anxiety and depression and bipolar, and they think just because it doesn't manifest itself and just because you haven't broken out into a physical rash or you are not wearing a plaster on your heart, it's not a condition that you need to give any significance to. So I truly believe that the hidden conditions that don't manifest themselves physically are very difficult for people to understand and empathize with. So physical disability, yes, but mental illness and hidden disabilities, we still have a long way to go. Let's do one more. Okay, let us calculate. And it's a math problem. And remember, math has only one answer. You can't have multiple answers to this question. And you can use a calculator, provided you know what you have to do.
Can you repeat the question, madam? What to do
It's
now?
you were supposed to listen to me the first time.
No, madam, I was just out
You're a very bad
for the
teacher.
class.
No,
No,
you just
no,
have to add. You have to add these numbers. There are lots of numbers. You just need to add them all.
it's a separate number, 2867 or
I I don't know. It's there. I've written it.
Okay, okay.
It's really clear. Anybody wants to give me their answer? It's very simple. It's a grade 2 question. What's going on? Okay. Anybody just start coming up with the answers.
I tried to separate these numbers. So I did 28 plus 9 is
Just give me the
37.
answer. Just give me the answer.
There's a multiple answers.
No,
There's
one
the
math, only one answer. How can you have multiple answers? Okay, I'm just going to stop the screen share. Answer. Who's going to give me the answer? Anu, what did you get?
37. I think there's
Okay.
an answer in the chat. It says 38604
Yeah,
and 385734. We have 3860. Couple of answers in the chat.
couple of answers. Yeah, it's the same problem. The trick is that if somebody has dyscalculia, they are not going to be able to. This is how they're going to see a very simple sum. Yeah, the moral of the story is not the answer, but how you can see even numbers differently, right? You just write something down and you expect them to understand and do the question. Like, you have that. I don't know whether you're still doing it in schools. You did that division thing with a line and those two curves on the end, and then you bring something down and then you put a plus and all. I used to flunk those questions because I just couldn't understand kiske niche kya likhna hai. So the whole concept of division was lost to me, and I just kept going around in circles in the placement of those numbers, on top, on left, in the ear, bring it down, arrow, take it up. So confusing. So a lot of times math difficulty has a lot to do with people just focusing on the processes and not really the concept behind something. Okay, this is what it. Yeah, who's going to read this for me? None of us can. Yeah, for somebody with a learning disability, all alphabets look really tricky. For somebody with comprehension who cannot read as fast, who is still learning to decode vocabulary. Yeah, this is tricky. It took me about 10 times to read through it with Google Translate, the synonyms on the side and meaning. And then I had to translate this whole thing into something simpler and write it down before I could figure out what this sentence means. So, for somebody who is still struggling with comprehension, is still struggling with deciphering difficult vocabulary, something like this, anything can read like this. You assume just because you knows and comprehend a sentence, somebody else also does. That's not how it works. This is a good fun activity. Who's going to, not this one, the next one? I'm not showing it on the screen. Who wants to volunteer to try the next activity? Anybody, one person can. Who will? I can't see a lot of people. Let's begin with you, Dolly. Okay.
Okay, done.
Dolly, in the next slide, don't read the word, okay? Don't read the word, just read the color that the word is saying, okay? Don't read
Okay,
the
yeah.
word, read the color, but quickly.
Red.
Red, yellow, blue, purple, green, brown, black.
Tricky.
Yeah.
And now just read the words, not the colors.
Yellow, red, black, blue, pink, green, brown. I have practiced it so many times. I will be honest. I have done this a lot many times earlier,
Yeah, it is
but very
difficult. It
difficult. Yeah.
is. It is difficult. It is difficult. So this means, how your mind processes things, like visuals are very easy for us. Even if we read something with the wrong language, we are able to read something जिसमें spelling errors होते हैं. But if we are supposed to comprehend something, it is trickier. Yeah. So we all need to distinguish between reading and comprehension. And we get a lot of students who are fluent readers, but if I ask them a question about what they've read, they don't know. So reading and comprehension are two very, very different things. Okay, let's do some are we good on time?
We have about 10 minutes, and I would like, if possible, leave around 5 minutes for Q&A.
Yeah.
So,
So let's do some question answers, and then if we have time, we'll talk about the myths and the facts. I will also share, Anu, the presentation with you, because the next couple of slides are just myths and facts, and you can share them with the participants.
wonderful. Thank you.
It's
That's
not
really
an
fun.
issue. Yeah, let's have some question answers.
Great. So if anyone has a question, feel free to unmute or put it in the chat, and we can take it from there. Anyone? I had one question while people are still coming up with theirs. So when you were talking, Shalu, it felt like, hey, if I think about it so broadly, then I have a disability as well. So in that sense, I feel like it's a bit more inclusive in that, like that. But then on the other hand, I also feel like if I think like that, then will I be able to cater to particular needs or be more understanding of someone who has a more exaggerated version of that? You see what I'm saying? It's a good thing to think like that, but also not maybe.
I get your point, Anu, and but the way I would look at it is that at the core of it, we are all human beings,
Yeah,
and our needs are the same. Yeah, and
correct.
that is how I personally like to approach anybody with a condition, and that is how I speak to parents, that at the bottom of it all, it doesn't matter whether you have a condition, whether you have a diagnosis, what is the percentage of your disability on your certificate, it doesn't matter. We all want the same thing. So the students that come to me are 16, 17 and above, and I said an 18-year-old man would want to be with a girl, would want to party, would want to look good, dress good, strut around. Then you come to whether, oh, I want to read or write or become a doctor, an engineer, or where I want to work. No, he wants to be accepted. He wants to have his circle of friends. He wants to be able to flirt. He wants to look good. He wants to watch movies. These are such simple things, right? Except flirting, which most people don't know how to do, but that's another story. But what I'm saying is that it's not rocket science. So what you need, Anu, is what anybody your age needs, and those are simple things. Then comes, oh, I want to earn this much money. I want to work in Microsoft. I want to drive this car. I want to live in this condominium. I want to travel. That comes secondary. But at the core of it, we're all the same. And that makes it so easy to provide what is needed first. My sense of belonging, my sense of knowing that these are my friends, this is my tribe, I'm accepted here, I won't be judged here, I'll be listened. Somebody will tell
Right.
me, hey, it's okay. That's it. That's what we all want, to be listened to, and somebody to tell us it's all okay. Baki things come much later. So what you said is correct. Disability is much later. I think we are all humans. We are all thankfully still social animals, regardless of the screen time that we have. We still have that bit left in us, and that is what we should be looking at. Everything else is secondary. And yes,
Beautiful.
if in the whole line of ability, if you have somebody in a coma on this side and you have, let's say, Superman on the other side, we all fall here. Some are closer here, some think they are closer there, but we all fall here.
Yeah.
One of the nicest quotes I read was that the word normal is just a setting on a washing machine. That's it. Beyond that, it means nothing.
Yeah.
Yes. So thank you for that
Thank you.
thought, though, that yes, we all have some bits of impairment or handicapped or disability or restriction or limitation. We all have.
Thank you. Thank you for responding to that. There's a comment here from Anuja Bali. She says, leave the parents, even the teachers are not aware, trained, and equipped to work with neurodivergent students. And she also says, actually, washing machine also has many settings for washing. You're on mute, Shali.
Correct. Yeah, there you go. Correct. I think it is high time that neurodiversity shouldn't be a separate topic. It should be a part of our education system, whether we are studying B.Ed or whether we are studying it should be that's what I began this workshop with, that it should be a terminology everybody is familiar with. If I tell, oh, that person is old, nobody's going to Google what old means. Everybody knows what old means. That old doesn't mean just an age. It means you may be very active, you may not be active, you could be sensitive, you couldn't be sensitive, you could be a great grandmother, or you could be unmarried, but everybody knows what old mean. It's in its entire spectrum. I don't have to train anybody for understanding the world old, but we have to still train people on what it means to be disabled, what it means to have a mental illness, what is intellectual disability, what is autism. I've known people who are advocates who say that I put it on the thing that, oh, um I have autism or something like that, and they had a wheelchair waiting for that person. So I said, I don't need a wheelchair. So they said, what do you need? He says, I don't need anything. I just stated that I have autism. So, it's still such a mystery. And if we don't start talking about it, if we don't start meeting people with neurodiversity, if we don't start hanging out with people with disability, if we don't see them in malls, in schools, in parties, in gatherings, we will spend the next 10 years trying to figure out in our own little pockets what it means to have a disability or to have a
I
neurodiversity.
have a question. I
Yes,
have
sure.
a question. You were talking about repetitive behavior, and you said that it is done for safety because it. So, can you elaborate on that?
I will. How many of you have a song that you listen to again and again? How many you have the same food that you listen to you eat again and again? Now that is not repetitive behavior. Why do we do it? It gives us a sense of security. We are familiar with it. I know the lyrics. So every time I listen to it, I feel very empowered that I know it. I know what to expect. Every time if I go to the same guy to have my golgappas, I know what is going to happen when I put it in my mouth. I'm ready for it. It's not like I'm going to get too much chili or too sour. I'm prepared for it. So that is what I meant by safety. Repetitive behaviors are that they get a feeling of safety and they center themselves. Yeah, right? For those of you who are shaking their foot while sitting in this workshop, you're doing it to ground yourself, to center yourself, to feel safe and secure. So, repetitive behavior doesn't mean you're doing it because you have this condition. It is something that all of us do in varying degrees. It's just that if it is too much, too visible, and in a public place where it's disturbing everybody else, then we try and tell students not to do it. If it is getting in the way of you being able to do a task that you're told to, then we try and stop it. Right? Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Anything else?
Do we have any more questions? If not, if the if everyone's okay and if Shalu, you're okay to speak for another 5 minutes, we would love to see what some of those myths and facts are, if you're okay with it.
Sure, I'm good.
Maybe we'll take the next 5 minutes or so.
So, one myth: people with disabilities are brave and courageous. Well, they're not. They're just like you and I. It requires a lot of support and scaffolding, love and caring for them to adapt, right? To adjust, but they are as brave and courageous as all of us. So this is my opinion. We don't need to put them on a pedestal. Yeah, they're just like you and I. Uh, just like an overweight person like me is not brave and courageous for climbing the stairs. It's just that have to hold on to the railing and make a little bit more effort, but that doesn't make me brave or courageous. All persons who use wheelchairs are chronically ill or sickly, not really. And we spoke about wheelchair users, that you could be using wheelchairs for a number of reasons. None of them have be to do with lingering illness. You could just have hurt yourself. So don't assume things when you see somebody on a wheelchair. Wheelchair use is confining. People who use wheelchair are wheelchair bound. We do not now use the word wheelchair bound incidentally. We say a wheelchair user because it doesn't bind you. To me, it is an assistive device that really empowers you. If I am unable to walk around on my own, but a wheelchair will get me easily from one place to another and give me access to all the things that I want to do, it is adding value to my life. It is enabling me to get around. All persons with hearing disabilities can read lips. No, they can't. Lip reading skills are different for different people. So don't assume somebody who can't hear and is looking at you is going to be able to lip read. Oh, this is my favorite. People who are blind require a sixth sense. No, they don't. They just develop their other senses a bit more. Yeah, but it's practice. It's mostly practice. You guys should try that at home. Just put a blindfold on your eyes and try and walk around your own bedroom. You would be able to do it without bumping. At night, when we wake up and go to the washroom, we walk, right? It's not a sixth sense. It's just that it's familiar and we've done it so many times that we have developed that sense. Uh, Again, this is something that I see a lot, that you assume people are more comfortable with their own community. That's not really true. Um, Inclusive schools are now are really opening up. Once they acquire the social skills and the confidence level to be with everybody else, especially their peer, they are able to. People who live with a disability cannot work, not really. Our office, ECOS, which Anu mentioned earlier, all the people there are people with disability. They all are employed full time and they are really solid workers. And when I say people with a diagnosis who work with me, they're not wheelchair users or people who are blind or deaf, but these are people with intellectual disability and autism and cerebral palsy, and they work really well. In fact, I have fewer problems with them than my regular staff, and I'm glad none of my staff is listening now. Also, are so-called non-disabled typical people, are we obligated to take care of people with disabilities? No, we are not, right? If you feel like it, volunteer. You don't have to run and help anybody who you feel needs help. Most people will ask for assistance or they prefer to look after it themselves. Another one of my favorites, if any child is asking about anything to do with disability, you say, shh, shh, let's not talk about it, not good, so rude. That's not it. Let children ask, please. There's no such thing as a bad answer. And that's what I like to say at my workshops also. There is no such thing as an incorrect or a politically incorrect or an impolite or a wrong answer. Please ask. If you don't ask, you will assume and you will never get another person's point of view. This is another one of my things that I come up with, they go to do it's just the same. They do just the same things. And that's why I mentioned the girl who's my supervisor who talks. And when they said, which is the, I remember it was one Microsoft workshop, and she was one of the spokesperson. It was demystifying disability, and somebody said, so what was, tell us one significant time that you remember, something people thought that she'll give something very deep about self realization. And she said, yeah, I slapped a guy. And they said, why? He said, because he was flirting with my friend and he was my boyfriend. And everybody was really taken aback that, like, really, this person also goes through the same frivolous things that we all do. Yes, she does. You're not always talking about deep, meaningful, oh, when I figured out I'm a self-independent. No, nothing. She said it was great fun to slap that guy. It was a very fun and very significant thing in my life. And I think it opened up a lot of eyes for participants that they are not like Mother Teresa's. They are just like you and I. They fall, they falter, they fight, they have best friends, they travel, they make mistakes, and they generally have a great time in life. uh, oh, this is such a taboo topic. I have parents who just, I can see visibly walls come down around them when I start talking about that. Are you even thinking of their sexual health? Are you even thinking about what their basic needs about being with the opposite gender are? They know they are not. And I say this is something that is the only thing that will happen with age. Whether they learn to read or write at the correct age doesn't matter. But their bodily needs are going to show up as soon as they're adolescents. So let's try and talk about it. Let's try and give them the correct information. Let's not assume that they are just going to read and write and do math for the rest of their life and think about nothing else. They will always need help. No, they are independent. Usually ask if somebody needs help, or they will ask if they need help. And then power of one. Everybody can contribute to changes. All of you who are attending this workshop today are contributing in your own way. And then this one, of course, we know. This is also something that I've seen enough. Everybody with autism is a genius. No, they are not. There are people who struggle with language. There are people who are non-verbal, who have so many sensory malfunctions that they can't function, they can't step out of their homes. So not everybody is a genius. Then this is also something that we use a lot in our vocabulary, that when you speak to somebody with an intellectual disability, keep your language simple but not childlike. Keep your language simple, not. I'm going to stop here because this is something that I do want to talk about. When you're talking to, I've seen a lot of people, and because I work with adults, so many visitors will come to our institute in all good faith and will talk to somebody who's 20-year-old like, hello, kaise ho? I want to say, why are you talking like that? Do you talk like that to your son or daughter who's 20, or your colleague who's 20-year-old? You need to talk to them normally. Don't throw large vocabulary or complicated sentences, but don't talk to them like a child. Keep your language simple and keep your language clear but not childlike. Another thing that you all will hear as you're working in the same field is, what is a people's first language? You see this a lot in corporates, but I think it makes a lot of sense. People's first language means that instead of saying this person is autistic, you say person with autism, person with Down syndrome. And the reason why you say that is because you're putting the person first and their condition later. So that is what is the norm. Though I personally know a lot of people with autism who are okay being called autistic. So if somebody with autism tells me, hey, listen, what is this person with? You can say this one so is autistic. I'm going to respect that. But usually you say person with intellectual disability, person who is a wheelchair user, person with cerebral palsy. So person first, right? Having said that, when we say Somebody who's deaf, we use the word person with hearing impairment. I know for a fact because a lot of my friends are people who are deaf. They said, please call us deaf. I said, but no, it's more polite to use person with here. He says, because there is no sign language for with, there is no symbol for with, and there is no symbol for impairment. So when you're trying to symbol, person, then you say with, then you say hearing, and then you do impairment. It's too complicated. Don't use it. Say this, good enough. You say this, deaf, fine. Don't make all these elaborate signs. So I respect that also. But when you're in a corporate, when you're in a workshop, when you're in a community where you're trying to sensitize people, we try and use these words: person with hearing impairment, person with visual impairment. But I know for a fact from the horse's mouth, people who are deaf are okay being called deaf. They call each other deaf, they call each other blind. Yeah, but well, we are not in their close circle, so we will still stick to the people's first language. I think once you know why we are using this language, it's easier to use it. And yes, I personally am okay with whatever anybody else says, so long as their intention is clear. I've attended enough workshop where a lot of people with of stature have stood on the stage and used such big words, correct words, but they wouldn't shake hands with somebody with a disability. On the other hand, I work with volunteers and social workers who sit with severely disabled people in their arms, who are throwing up over them and are pooping over them, and they don't blink, and they hold them with so much grace and love. And then if they say things like, koi baat nahi, ma'am, pagal hai bechara, it's okay. It's okay. So you have to look at the intention of the person also before just jumping on the head and says, अरे कैसे बोल दिया पागल है. वो बोलेंगे ठीक है आपने जो बोला है बोलो और पकड़ लो आप भी. So it doesn't matter. So always, I truly believe if your intentions are clear and if you're trying to make an impact or a difference or join this beautiful world of this wonderful community, it is okay to slip up and use some words. Don't beat yourself over it. It will come naturally to you with time. It still hasn't come to be the 100% correct vocabulary. I try, but it will. Yeah. So be focused on your intention, and it doesn't matter. And ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shalu, and thank you for taking us through the extra bit as well. I think the last part especially was very, very warm and very, very I think it makes the whole topic feel so much lighter and more accessible. Thank you for making it that for us today and for coming here on a Saturday evening. You're right, afternoon is not over yet, and for taking that time. And thanks everyone else for coming as well. Really appreciate it. Anuja has a question. Where are you based and how can we contact you? I think she says. Yeah, I would like to connect, she says. You're on mute, Charlie.
With your permission, I'll leave my phone number here. And my organization is Evolve Your Solutions. You can find us on Insta, Facebook, on YouTube, etc. And we are based out of Gurgaon. We have 60 young people who are registered with us, who are now getting into internships and jobs, etc. So do go through our social media presence, and it'll give you an idea of what we do. And would be happy to take on questions or sharing of any insights later as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being
Thank
open to that
you.
as well. If you haven't yet filled the feedback form, please do so. And again, we thank you so much for being here. Thanks, Shalu, and thanks
Thank you.
everyone else. Have a good rest of the weekend.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Shalu. Thank you, Anu. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.